Hello, welcome to the first artist takeover at Artcore. Welcome to my studio. My name's Nicki Dennet. I'm a printmaker. I sell my work in Artcore. I work as a workshop facilitator at Artcore, but my other work is as a printmaker and an illustrator. This is my tiny studio that I work in for most of the time. So what I'm going to do today, I'm just going to go through my working process, and I'm going to show you some of my sketchbooks, the materials that I use to create my artwork, and also I'm going to show you some of my prints, some of my earlier prints, and some of the work that I'm actually doing now. I first started making art when the children were really small. So when they were just started school, I went to an art class in the evenings, and then the teacher there encouraged me to go to college, and I went to college, did a foundation course at Chesterfield. From there on, I went to Derby University in the year 2000 as a mature student, and I did a part-time degree over 6 years, and I finished in 2006 with a first class in illustration. Before that, I was a hairdresser. I was a mobile hairdresser, which I did part-time when the children were really tiny, just at weekends when I could. So it was a bit of a career change for me. So I'm going to start by showing you some of my earliest university work. For the first few years, I just did lots and lots and lots of sketching. So this is one of the projects that we did at university. We had to draw legs and feet. So I went to the train station at Derby, you can see that, and I did lots and lots of people's legs. So this was a sketchbook that I filled up with just legs and feet. So that was one of the projects, and it was quite early drawings, but it was quite nice to be able to just draw part of the body and not have to concentrate on the whole figure. We did a lot of life drawing as well, and we did lots of little holiday projects where we had to fill a sketchbook. One of them was following my daughter around the house for the whole week's holiday, just drawing her. She was the one person that I'd picked to draw. So that was all the practice I had with that. But what happened then was I didn't know quite where to take all these sketches that I had. I just accumulated lots of sketchbooks, which are just 3 shelves up here full of sketchbooks, and I just didn't know where to take them. And then I was introduced to Charles Shearer at the university, and he showed me how to make collagraphs. So that was, he kind of did it in a different way to the way I work now. It was using the relief method, which is rolling over. You make your plate and then you roll over it with the ink and then print it. After that, I went to Leicester Print Workshop and did a workshop with Catherine Headley, and she did it in the opposite way, in the intaglio method, where you push ink into the grooves. So combining, in the end, I started to do mixed media prints, combining the 2 methods that I'd learned in collagraphs mainly. So I did that for quite a long time, and for the rest of my degree, all my work was done in that way. So this is one of my first collagraphs. It's not the original. I don't have the original anymore. I have the plate somewhere, but this was one of the very first ones that I did at the university. So this is just a copy of it. So I did that by making a card plate and then tearing away all these little, these darker areas. I tore off the top layer of the card, which was the plate. I can show you a different plate. I don't know where that one is. So this was one I did a little bit later for another project. We had to do a series of posters for the 3-penny opera. So this is the plate that I used. So this is made of cardboard. So it's just mount board like this, and then I cut into it. Put it closer so you can see. So that was quite a detailed one. To make the little detailed lines, I use a tiny knife, which I think I've got in my pencil case. So I use a little knife with a swivelly end to get the really fine details on those. So when I left university, on the year before I left, I entered that print and another one into the Nottingham Open, and I won the solo exhibition prize. So that was a bit of a panic because the exhibition happened to be around the same time as my final show at university. So I had a bit of a mad panic trying to make lots and lots of prints. Let me put my glasses on so I can see the comments that you're making. Hi, Rashita. Oh, yeah, yes, I used to be a hairdresser, and I still dabble now. I still do Dale's hair, my mum's hair, my daughter's hairs. But yeah, everybody be asking me now to cut the hair. So where was I? So some more of the ones from university. I can show you some of my older ones. So this is the first ever mono screen print that I did. This is a copy again. I do have the original. It's on the wall just outside there. So this was, we had to do a poster for eating around London. So I'll put it in a bit. On this one, there was my next door neighbour where I used to live. That was him. He had one of these, call them, these little cycles there. You can see that. Him on the bike there. That was actually my next door neighbour, and he used to cut his hedge on stilts. This is another series of work that I did. Again, not the original. I don't have many of the originals left of a lot of these. So that was a whole series of work to do with healthy eating. That was the first one of that. So they were all the healthy eating projects and really early work. So after I finished, and after the exhibition, where I had to make some huge work for the exhibition, I think somewhere I have a little thing of one of the big pieces that was up on the wall at Nottingham Castle. So there's a picture of me with the work on the wall. So that was on the stairs going up, and then there was another one at the top. So that's the plate from that. So you can see from that how big it actually is. It's a lot bigger than it looks on there. So they took me quite a long time to cut. So after I left university, I had various jobs and tried to make myself known as a printmaker. So I sold work in quite a few galleries. I did a lot of shows. So it works with Festival of Melbourne, Festival Patchings, and things like that. I did a lot of workshops. One of my first workshops was in a school, and I was actually interviewed by the children to be there for 2 weeks to help them create something to do with Cinderella, the fairy story. So I have got a copy of the book that they made. It was 26 children, and they all did a page between them. And when we made it into a book, so I had my press in there. It was quite messy with all the children. So this is what I did the cover. This is what we did with some of the children. So I won't show you all the pages. Show you a couple of the pages there. You can see that. That's it in the camera. So that was the whole book of that. From there on, I did various exhibitions. I was a guest artist at the Ashbourne Festival. I'm trying to think what I've done. I've had a couple of solo exhibitions at Dadar. I think what else? Yes, I've done lots of workshops for teachers as well as art clubs and societies, and then I got made redundant from one of my jobs, and straight away I got the residency at Artcore, which was really, really good. So I was working at Artcore for 2 months, and that enabled me, that got me involved in a lot more workshops, which really was really helpful and useful. And so I'm going to show you some of my sketchbooks now. So the different types of sketchbooks that I use for different projects. So like I said, with the first one I did, I kind of kept that that way of working on. So when I go on holiday, I always get a new sketchbook to work in. So this was quite a long holiday. So we went away for a whole month in Greece. So this was the whole sketchbook of the Greek holiday. And I always start by doing the first page before I go, so I'm not scared to use the first page when I'm there. And I use lots of collage bits. The way I work, when I go out on holiday, if I collect lots of bits and pieces, receipts and all sorts of things, like for instance that page, and I'll put them on, when I get home that day, I'll put all those things onto the paper, and then I will paint them over with a little tub of gouache that I always take out with me. No, I don't use gesso, because when I write over with gesso, it ruins your pens and it's really hard to work over. So the gouache is a lot better and it's a lot smoother, and you can see through it a little bit, so it gives quite a nice texture. You can hide little bits and have little bits showing. And also another thing I tend to do is, like things like this drawing, I'll sometimes just paint around the edges. I can find one. There must be some in there, like this one. So instead of painting the actual thing in, when I get back to the apartment, I will paint around it, so that it makes the things show up a bit more. And I always put lots of writing in. Sometimes they're just things like things that I've got to get from the shops, or the time of day, what the weather was like, anything really. And there are some where there's lists of what we've bought, because we were on a budget. So trying to work out how much we've spent for that day. That's also quite a lot of pages. So I can show you some of the pages out of here. I'll just let you have a look at some of these. So this is something that's a little thing that I collected that I got from the church. Can't see which pages I'm showing you. Let's jump a few. So sometimes I just trying to capture the colours of the sunset. So it doesn't have to be really tight drawing. It can be just loose things, just trying to get the colours that I want to use. You might want to use them later in some prints. This is the one I'm working in now, which I actually used for Wales. So I've actually got the sand in there. I just put Pritt stick on it and rub it into the sand. So it creates a good texture. And then I've got like a little map of how to get from the campsite into Cardigan Bay, and then I've drawn over it when I got to Cardigan Bay. So that was all mostly in Wales. So I usually just take a pen out with me, unless we're going to be somewhere like on the beach. I'll just take my little tin, my trusty little tin of watercolours, which are really, really messy, but they're well used. So I take those everywhere with me. I don't take many materials. I'll take them, my Pritt stick, my gouache, and a pen. That's pretty much it, what I take with me when I go out. If I've only got a handbag, that's all I can manage. And I like this size sketchbook as well. It's just a bit smaller than A3 and it fits into your bag really nicely. So where do I take my sketches from there? This is another one from, I think it was Wales. I should say where it is actually. The Wednesday morning campsite, 10 AM. So I think that was Wales. Yeah, and so these are a couple that from Wales. And when I got back from Wales, as you can see, I stick all sorts of things in there. It was when I had the solo show, first solo show at Daydar, and I had to create lots of new work, so I needed to make some bigger work. And so I used these little sketches from these books and various other ones from campsites, and I created a series similar to this one. I don't have all of them. I think my mum's got one. So this is, so you can see the influence by there's a tent there, and a bit big this one. So that was kind of inspired by a day out, a week of camping. I think that one's called Barracks Farm, so that would have been inspired by the Barracks Farm drawings. So that was the camping one. I think from there on, my work started to get a little bit more abstracted. I draw things like little shapes and things in my sketchbooks now. So, just little shapes of textures and things on my and my work's got a little bit more abstracted, but I know I've always wanted to do a series of work inspired by a story that my grandma's sister wrote about living at the Frygate goods yard. So I did that whole series. I always work when I'm not on a deadline. I work much better, and I had to make a whole series of work for the Derby Royal Hospital, and I had to make at least eight pictures. So I think a couple of them might be. I think I've got more at home now. So that's one of them. So as you can see, it's a bit more abstracted. I've started to do a lot more mono printing rather than just colographs. So that one's I've got a monoprint background, and then I do gun Arabic printing over the top. And so which is really nice because it means you can get some bits of text in there, and the text on the whole series of these is from the story that my aunt wrote. There are some. So this is another that kind of got me into doing the whole family tree thing, and not just about the story. So this was another one to do with that series, and this has got an old letter on that my granddad wrote to my dad when he was in the army, and the tree is symbolic of the tree that my grandma had in her garden. So after that, how are we for time? Not very long now. So after that, I decided just a few years ago, after working in the illustration department, in the print room for the illustration, the first year illustration students, I'd seen what all the textile students were doing with print, and decided I wanted to have a go at that. So I went on and I decided that I was going to do textile MA. So I didn't know where I was going. I tried everything from weaving to digital print, which is the one that's hanging up behind us, which was printed from that print, which is a mono print. And now where I'm at now is I'm trying to create some big hangings, which I also want to make some scarves. And I have a big influence of the colour, as you've seen, where I like to do lots of colours. So this was kind of a test sample with lots of colours. So I've ended up going more into screen printing for this. What I'm trying to do is get the same kind of textures that I get in my prints into my fabric. So this is kind of my favourite one so far, because I still like to get that text in there, and it's got the drawings it's actually from the end of a tree that's got mushrooms growing out, and the text is from a Facebook site called Walk 1,000 miles, and I asked them to tell me in one word what walking made them feel, and I got I was a bit overwhelmed with all the replies. I got quite a lot, and I'm trying to get as many as I can onto the large feast, which I'm working on still now, which is taking quite some time, especially now everywhere's shut and the university's shut. But this is what I'm working on at the minute, and it's going to have lots of text on there, and hopefully as many as those words and names as possible. And I think the time is up now. And thank you for watching, and stay safe. Next up tomorrow, there's going to be one of these every day. So tomorrow it's going to be Natasha Joseph at 4 o'clock. Bye. Thank you.